What happens when the hunter becomes the hunted? The Department of Justice, the same institution once praised for independence, has just indicted New York Attorney General Letitia James, the woman who spent years pursuing Donald Trump. Yeah, you heard that right. Trump's fiercest prosecutor is now the defendant, accused of mortgage and bank fraud by a DOJ led by his own appointees. Democrats are calling it revenge, Republicans are calling it justice, and the rest of America is staring at a justice system that suddenly looks like it's turning on itself. Here's the kicker. This isn't some routine legal spat. This could mark the moment when political warfare officially replaces rule of law in the United States. To understand the explosion we're seeing now, you need to rewind the timeline. Letitia James made her name by going directly after Trump's empire. She accused him of inflating asset values to secure better loans and insurance terms. Her civil fraud case in New York cost Trump hundreds of millions of dollars in penalties and reshaped the business landscape around his brand. To Trump's world, she was enemy number one, the prosecutor who weaponized justice. To Democrats, she was a hero standing up to a billionaire president who thought he was untouchable. But that's the backdrop. Here's the turn. Under a new DOJ leadership, reports surfaced that federal investigators were quietly reviewing James's own financial disclosures, focusing on property filings and loans connected to a Manhattan apartment she co-owned before taking office. Then came the move nobody expected. A Trump-appointed U.S. attorney unsealed a federal indictment charging James with multiple counts of mortgage and bank fraud, the same kind of white-collar crime she once prosecuted. Within hours, headlines exploded. Trump's DOJ indicts Letitia James. For the first time in modern U.S. history, a sitting state attorney general from the opposing party was facing criminal charges from a federal department controlled by her political rival. In a statement, James called the charges baseless, retaliatory, and un-American. Trump's allies called them karma, and Washington instantly split down the middle. The escalation was instant. Within minutes of the indictment, Trump took to social media. Letitia Peekaboo James finally caught. She's the most corrupt AG in America. The people are getting justice. The post set off a political earthquake. Cable news ran split screens. James's press conference on one side, Trump's Truth Social feed on the other. Democrats accused the DOJ of becoming a weapon of retribution. Republicans framed it as long overdue accountability. The story moved fast. Attorney General Pam Bondi, a longtime Trump ally, now running the DOJ, defended the case publicly, saying no one is above the law. But that line, "no one is above the law," cut both ways. Critics pointed out that the phrase was used to justify Trump's own indictments just a year earlier. Now, the exact same words were being used to justify prosecuting his most vocal pursuer. Behind the scenes, DOJ officials reportedly fought over whether the evidence met the standard for federal charges. Some career prosecutors refused to sign the indictment. Others were reassigned. Leaks from inside the department described pressure from the top and a rush to deliver. Meanwhile, political reactions poured in. Senator Chuck Schumer blasted the decision as an assault on justice itself. House Republicans, led by Jim Jordan, countered with hearings on state-level corruption within blue strongholds. The fight wasn't about one woman anymore. It was about who controls justice. The public reaction? Chaos. In New York, protesters lined the streets, some waving "Justice for James" banners, others chanting "Lock her up." On cable news, legal analysts warned that if the indictment stands, every attorney general in America could now be a political target. And here's what makes it worse. Every legal motion, every court filing is being broadcast like political theater. The trial isn't even scheduled yet, but the narrative war is already being waged in real time. The immediate fallout has been unlike anything Washington has seen since the Nixon era. First, the legal side. James's lawyers filed a motion to dismiss the charges, arguing selective prosecution, that she was targeted purely because of her actions against Trump.
The DOJ responded with a 200-page filing defending its independence, saying the investigation predated Trump's comments. Neither side is backing down. Then, Congress stepped in. Democratic leaders on the House Judiciary Committee announced plans to hold emergency hearings on the weaponization of justice. Republicans fired back by demanding subpoenas for James's financial records, calling her the poster child of corruption. The legislative branch is turned into a courtroom, each side acting as judge, jury, and public executioner.
Public trust is disintegrating. A new poll shows 61% of Americans now believe the justice system is politically biased. That number crosses party lines. Even independents, the group that once held faith in judicial neutrality, are losing confidence. In state capitals across the country, other attorneys general are watching closely. Several have paused pending investigations against federal officials, fearing retaliation. One former DOJ official put it bluntly, "If this stands, every AG in America just became a target waiting for a turn." And inside the courtroom, things are turning personal. Prosecutors who once worked under James in state cases are being called as witnesses against her. Career civil servants are being dragged into political crossfire they never asked for. This isn't just politics anymore. It's a full-scale institutional collapse in slow motion. The very system meant to uphold fairness is now the main character in its own scandal. And as both parties weaponize the narrative, the casualty is something much bigger than one indictment. It's the credibility of American law itself. But here's the part nobody's talking about. What happens if this actually goes forward? What if Letitia James is convicted? What if a Democratic attorney general, once seen as the symbol of accountability, becomes the face of political prosecution in modern America? Because if that happens, it won't just be one case. It'll be a signal. A signal that in the United States of 2025, justice doesn't serve power. Power serves justice, or worse, justice now serves power. When the lines between justice and politics blur, the next thing that disappears is restraint, and that's exactly what's happening right now. The indictment of Letitia James isn't just another headline. It's a stress test of the American system. It asks one brutal question: who does the law really belong to, the people or the powerful? For Trump and his allies, this case is payback in plain sight. They see it as poetic justice. The prosecutor who spent years chasing Trump, now standing in the same defendant's box. But beneath the surface, it's far more strategic than emotional. Every indictment of a Democrat strengthens the idea that Trump's government is cleaning up corruption. It turns revenge into branding, and that's how power sustains itself. Democrats, on the other hand, see the move as an existential threat. They know that once prosecutorial power becomes a political weapon, it never goes back to being neutral. If you can indict an attorney general for crossing a president, you can indict anyone. Governors, judges, reporters. That's not speculation, it's trajectory. And yet, history warns us, once the weapon is unsheathed, both sides end up bleeding. Look back at Watergate. Nixon tried to crush his enemies through legal maneuvers, and in doing so, crushed his presidency. Look at McCarthyism. Investigations turned into witch hunts, and paranoia became policy. And now, the same ghosts are walking again, only this time with modern tools, social media outrage, cable news amplification, and an attention economy that feeds on chaos.
The political logic is brutal but simple. For Trump, striking at James accomplishes three things. First, it neutralizes one of his strongest critics, the woman who turned his business empire into a legal liability. Second, it sends a chilling message to every state attorney general thinking of investigating him. You might be next. And third, it rewrites the public narrative, transforming the accused into the accuser and the prosecutor into the proof of his victimhood.
The timing, too, is deliberate. The indictment lands just as Trump's approval among independent voters begins to slip under renewed economic pressure and foreign policy turmoil. But nothing rallies his base like a public fight with a Democrat. And this fight, a high-profile Democrat, a federal courtroom, and cries of retaliation, is campaign fuel in pure form. For Democrats, though, it's a nightmare scenario. Every defense of James risks sounding like hypocrisy. They spent years insisting no one is above the law. Now they must argue that context matters, that motive is what defines justice. It's a losing rhetorical battle because it sounds like double standards, and double standards erode credibility faster than lies. Inside the DOJ, morale is collapsing. Career lawyers talk about an atmosphere of fear, the kind that doesn't need orders because everyone already knows what's expected. Decisions that used to take months are being rushed in days. Meetings once dominated by evidence are now dominated by politics. The department that once prided itself on independence is now fighting to prove it still exists.
Federal judges are caught in the storm too. They see the same headlines, the same fury, the same threats. Every ruling is now interpreted as political, no matter the reasoning. Even neutrality looks like bias when trust is gone. And for state attorneys generals across the country, the message is chilling. Several offices have paused ongoing investigations into federal policy, afraid that any move could be viewed as partisan and invite federal retaliation. When fear enters law enforcement, law itself begins to break down. Across America, the reaction is a mixture of exhaustion and disbelief. Some citizens shrug, they're all corrupt anyway. Others rage, this is dictatorship in slow motion. But the real danger isn't outrage, it's apathy. Because apathy is how democracies die quietly. Polls show confidence in the justice system at historic lows. People no longer agree on what counts as truth, let alone what counts as crime. Every case becomes a mirror. Republicans see corruption punished. Democrats see justice abused. The facts haven't changed, only the filters have. And yet, in all the noise, one sobering realization is taking hold. If both sides see the system is broken, who's left to fix it? America has been here before, not identical, but familiar. During the Watergate years, Nixon tried to bend justice to his will. It backfired spectacularly. During the Clinton years, impeachment was stretched into theater. And during the McCarthy era, accusations became a language of control, a tool to silence dissent, not expose truth. But there's one crucial difference this time: speed. Back then, scandal unfolded in newspapers and nightly broadcasts. Now it unfolds in real time. Each accusation, each leak, each rumor explodes online within minutes before the facts even form. The velocity of information is killing deliberation, and deliberation is what justice depends on. The indictment of Letitia James is more than a legal maneuver. It's a cultural moment, a reflection of a country that no longer distinguishes accountability from annihilation. One side calls it cleansing, the other calls it corruption. Both call it justice. So, where does this all go? Scenario 1. The conviction. If James is convicted, it will send shockwaves through every blue state institution. Republicans will claim total vindication, Democrats will claim political persecution, and the precedent will be irreversible, proving that the DOJ can and will take down elected officials from the opposing party. Scenario 2. The collapse. If the case falls apart, the DOJ's credibility implodes. Every prosecutor involved will face scrutiny. Trump's narrative of a deep state witch hunt reversed will dominate the airwaves. And future corruption cases, no matter how legitimate, will be met with public skepticism and partisan spin. Scenario 3. The stalemate. The legal fight drags on. Motions, appeals, investigations of investigators. By the time it's over, the public has already moved on, not because it's resolved, but because they're numb. And numbness is more dangerous than rage, because rage still believes something can be fixed. Numbness doesn't.
What this moment exposes is a country losing its shared definition of justice. To one side, law is protection. To the other, it's punishment. To both, it's power.
When every case becomes a referendum on identity, truth stops being persuasive. Facts don't unite, they fracture. The courtroom turns into a political arena, and prosecutors become actors in a performance none of them can control. Letitia James is not just a defendant. She's a symbol of how quickly yesterday's prosecutor becomes today's target. And she's a warning that when justice becomes a mirror for politics, everyone eventually sees themselves in it. So now we face a choice. If you believe the DOJ is acting on evidence, you see accountability. If you believe it's acting on orders, you see retaliation. Both cannot be true, and yet in this America, both will be believed. What happens next depends on something far bigger than one case. It depends on whether Americans still believe justice can exist without politics, or whether every verdict from now on will just be another election result by other means. Think about that. Is this accountability or collapse? Is this justice or just revenge wearing a badge? Because one thing is certain. When power learns it can prosecute its enemies and survive, it never stops. Like, share, and subscribe, because this story is far from over. The next headline won't be about who's guilty. It'll be about who's next.